Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Night Owl. Uh, we a show that we do twice a week where we discuss all the latest in pop culture, news, entertainment, gaming, TV, and movie reviews. As usual, I have my co-host with me, the Professor, Professor R2. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. Kind of a busy week, but nice to take a little break and come out here and have a nice little chat with you late this evening.
One of our famous late night chats. And by the
Yes.
way, for those who don't know, I'm Price of Reason, and this is Professor R2. And of course, whatever platform you're watching on, you are welcome to click on that like button and follow and share and do all that stuff. And I hope that everything's okay. Some platforms have had some issues today. Not Rumble, though. Rumble is running strong. Rumble has its own. Its own servers and its own cloud and everything. It kind of built its own setup, which I really like. I
Yeah,
don't know if
they
you knew
they
that.
can they yeah, they kind of rolled their own thing. They didn't want to rely on anybody else's back end for what
Right,
they're
and
trying
I
to
actually
deliver.
saw Chris Pavlovsky, Rumble CEO, talking about it, and he was saying how they just rely on themselves and their own technology, and how they keep improving it, and I like that. So it's
Yeah,
good.
well, I mean, when you think about it, obviously, their focus has really been on free speech, making sure that everybody's got a platform that they can come to if they have something to talk about. And I think they probably learned some lessons from some other platforms that have found themselves unable to deliver their services because some particular business decided that they didn't like what they had to say and decided to take their server space away or kick them off of their cloud or whatever. So I think that was wise to invest up front, making sure they had their own their own servers and everything to deliver their service, so they don't have to worry about getting shut down by somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's it's good thinking. And it's what I like about this platform. It just does things the way it does it, and I can only hope they continue to grow the way they've been growing, and continue to make that kind of difference when it comes to free speech.
Absolutely. And
If if maybe like X is sort of the social network place to hang out, I would say that Rumble is the more video based one. That's the thing that really you know I think stands
yeah,
out
yeah.
as a legitimate video platform. And the more technology and the more they improve, I think that they're really going to be giving some of their competitors a run for their money.
Absolutely, and like anything in the free market, the more competitors, the more competition you have, then the better those services can become because they're going to be competing for everyone's voices. They're going to be competing for everyone's, eyeballs. So yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, I like what Rumble is doing, and wish them continue, ongoing success in this field. And then aside from that, it's been kind of an interesting week or so. Was it a week since that election thing took place?
yes, it's been a week since we were talking about the election, watching those returns come in, and quite the week it has been. There have been some some absolutely ludicrous, just brain dead takes from some people online about the election and about the impacts it's going to have on various different people. Obviously, some people are elated. Some people are very, very happy about how the election turned out, and there's others that are deeply unhappy. Let's just say that about how things turned out, and are threatening to leave the country or doing all sorts of things to themselves, like shaving their heads and walking around with safety pins on their clothes and lots of other things.
Yeah, yeah. And oh, I see Kivo 1961 gave us a super Rumble rant. Sorry, and we're gonna read it. Your James Bond theme song segment last week. How can you not mention "Live and Let Die" Paul McCartney?
Who?
Okay,
I'm just kidding. Why did I not mention it? Why did we not mention that one? I kind of saw it there and just thought that one's kind of obvious.
I'll tell you what I think. I think that I know that everybody loves it, and it's certainly a decent song. I like Paul McCartney, and after the Beatles, it's one of his better efforts.
Yeah.
So it's not terrible, but at the same time, I don't put it like it's not in the top three for me.
No,
It's
I'll be honest, it's pretty middle of the road for me. I
middle of the
don't
road
love
for
it.
me as
I don't
well.
love it.
I don't love it because
No.
there's something a little bit, once, and this is just my personal opinion. Once Paul McCartney left the Beatles, I feel like he went a little bit, more commercial, more kind of, I don't want to say cheesy, but I feel like he kind of lost his edge. The advantage of him working with people like John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr is I feel like they really kept him grounded and actually, gave him that edge. Now, don't get me wrong, he's a musical genius. So the fact that he was in the Beatles, he certainly, carried
Absolutely.
his weight there, and he contributed iconic melodies and bass lines and ideas, and his work there is legendary. But I'll still say that he was part of a team, and when he went and he was on his own, there's something that you could really tell that the sort of edge that they bring is missing.
Yeah, and of course, he was with Wings at that point, and it
With
was
his
just
wife playing keyboard. I mean, again,
yeah,
his wife seemed like a nice lady, his ex-wife, Linda Eastman. But I'm just saying, I don't know. They're like singing with the keyboards and the whatever. I don't know.
yeah.
It just, of course, he's a good musician still, even during the Wings era, even during the solo
Oh, of
material.
course,
It's
yeah.
not
It
like I
just
look at him. You understand what I'm saying?
yeah, it didn't have the same spirit of the Beatles. It didn't have that same edge that was there with the Beatles, kind of like you said. And let's be honest, Wings might have had 4 hits.
It's
It
funny.
was they were not the Beatles.
Tripping
Okay,
North says the original Paul would have had a better solo career. I think he means like the
the
Paul is
original
dead thing. That's a funny kind
miss
of insider
him,
joke.
miss him.
But yeah, I mean, the thing is that I think that it's like a middle of the road song, just like you just said.
Yeah.
And Paul McCartney, one of the things that John Lennon brought to the table is he had this kind of badass quality about him. You could
Hmm.
tell that he was, more pushing the envelope, more kind of, you know, more wild. I don't really know how to explain it, but he had a different vibe to him, and I think that they really complemented each other well. Now, when John Lennon went on his own, I still think that he maintained some of that edge. Meaning, if I had to listen now to a solo John Lennon album or a solo Paul McCartney album, I would take John Lennon any day of the week. Uh, there's a few songs that I don't mind with Paul McCartney, especially when he does like a collaboration like say with Michael Jackson. At
Yeah.
least it was something cool. And again, somebody else came and brought a little bit of character that was missing. Meaning, of course, that a collaboration is what really stands out. When you see Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, suddenly it's like, okay, this is cool. Because Paul McCartney is a genius, but it's just he kind of needs other geniuses with him to
Hmm.
really deliver it. John Lennon could just sit on a piano and sing Imagine, and it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Again, I still think that the Beatles is better than stuff that came after the Beatles for all of them. But I
Oh,
would
yeah.
still I would say that John Lennon, like I appreciate his solo material more. George Harrison, I really like him. I think he was underrated in the Beatles, and because of all the you know presence of Lennon McCartney and how powerful they were, I
Yeah.
think that he kind of
Yeah.
got pushed aside. They would give him like a song or two on an album, and they'd be doing him, quote unquote, doing him a favor. A lot of these are classic songs, and by the time they ended their run, their final album, their biggest hits are actually George Harrison
Yeah,
songs.
yeah, he was underrated simply because he was not the big sort of boisterous front man that John Lennon was. He didn't have that big personality that really stood out, like Paul McCartney or the really sort of more visible characters among them. But he was nonetheless extremely talented as a musician and as a songwriter. And yeah, I mean, the Beatles were the Beatles because they had that just amazing collection of talent all together in that same room, and they were
Bigger
They were
than the sum of
always
their
they
parts.
they were always pushing each other to experiment and try different things, and of course, they went on their crazy trips, going through, India and all that stuff and trying all sorts of experimental drugs and things like that eventually that kinda changed their music and affected things, but, yeah, they were always working together and pushing each other to make something amazing. And I mean, you can see it. I still go back and listen to the Beatles all the time, and their music, especially the White Album, is just mind blowing. Just how much creativity there is there, how much depth and just exploration of all kinds of different musical styles and stuff, just all in one album. It's amazing.
Well, you have Tex Rogers saying, that's a friend of the channel, Beatles stuff is just boring to me. They don't hold a candle to J.S. Bach. Okay, if you're into classical music,
Yeah,
obviously, if you're listening to Bach, it's not gonna be a that kind of music. It's a different genre completely. I can appreciate. I mean, classical music is very complex. So if you're looking for that level of complexity, you're probably not going to find it in the Beatles or anything really that's sort of 20th century, more contemporary, you know,
yeah.
those kind of things that you're looking for are not going to be in that kind of music. But I
Sure.
respect your opinion
Yeah,
nevertheless.
I love classical music too. Yeah, I don't listen to it as much as I used to, but I do love it. And someone I was going to say, the Dead Man, friend of the channel, he mentioned, don't forget George Martin. Absolutely, you cannot forget George Martin as their producer. Commonly referred to as the fifth Beatle. He was a huge part of what made their music so big. He was able to really pull some of those different personalities together. He was able to blend those together as he was helping to mix the music and produce those albums. His influence on the Beatles cannot be understated. He was a big part of what made them such a huge success.
I agree. Ercole De Stefano. Ercole De Stefano says, "Live and Let Die is better than anything Lennon did in his entire solo career." You know, it's a good song. I don't know if it's better than everything that John Lennon did in his solo career. He had some pretty cool stuff going on. If I there's a few albums, and again, I don't listen to it as religiously as the Beatles stuff, but some of those albums that he did on his own, there's some music that's overall, in my opinion, better. I feel like these are better albums for me, for my personal taste,
Yeah,
than a lot of the Paul McCartney stuff. That's just my opinion.
I think it might. Yeah, I think in that kind of thing, it might just come down to taste.
That
I was never particularly fond of a lot of Lennon's solo stuff, but I'm not saying any of it was necessarily bad. Just simply, I mean, it's a
it's a matter
taste
of
thing.
taste. Just like Dead Man thinks Mozart is better than
Yeah.
Bach. But what's not a matter of taste, and that's back to what we were talking about. We talked about it last time. How after Trump's win in the election, how there was sort of this feeling of like an overall meltdown, whether it's celebrities, pundits, news people, influential people, public figures. It just seemed like there was a huge type of meltdown, which we were kind of expecting it,
Oh yeah.
and it was kind of amusing to even see it unfold, even though we were expecting it. You think you're going to know what it's going to be like, but then when it happens, it's still kind of amusing.
Oh
And
yeah, seeing some, like I said, some of the truly just unhinged reactions that are happening out there. They, I think we're slowly, in the stages of grief. I'm sure you've heard of those. The 5 stages. I think they've moved past denial and now they're on to anger at this point. But sometime later this week, maybe next week, they're going to be in the bargaining stage. We're going to start, how can we do this? How can we get out of this problem? Whatever. And then after that, it's just going to go straight into depression, and everything's going to get real nasty.
I
So,
mean, we saw Jimmy Kimmel and how he wept because
oh
Trump
yes,
won.
oh yes.
We were looking at Stephen Colbert and his whiny thing, and Seth Meyers were a few that we looked at.
Hmm.
Billie Eilish, I think we looked at that. There have been other ones like that that popped up throughout the week, but I feel like this was something that I think that Joe Rogan and JD Vance talked about. That they said, well, now they're going to move to trying to attack like Elon Musk a lot more than they did, and maybe JD Vance are going to start, you know, focusing on these two guys more. That's what they were talking about, I think. And Elon Musk, I feel like all these people that are seem kind of like sore losers are beginning to understand that everything that they tried to do to silence Elon Musk, to get the advertisers to pull their money, to do everything, all their games didn't work. And at the end, on X, people were just having much more real conversations. And I think that it did at the end influence in some way. I mean, it's not a matter of it influenced the election as much as that it didn't let that mainstream media narrative thing come in and brainwash everybody.
Oh yes, yeah. I was actually earlier today in a conversation on Twitter, comparing some of this behavior that we've seen from some of these people with these just outrageous things that they're doing. Like I mentioned, like shaving their heads, or disowning, disconnecting from family members, this kind of thing. This is, I mean, that's cult like behavior, like
Uh,
saying, I'm gonna shut everyone out of my life who voted a certain way. I'm gonna, I have to disconnect myself from them because it's unhealthy. And then calling, everyone who voted for Trump traitors, I mean, just completely unhinged levels of stuff that
totally.
it's that type of black and white thinking, and this idea that you have to be just perfectly ideologically pure. You got to cut people out of your life that aren't affirming who you're supposed to be and stuff. That's cult level stuff, and it's wild to see it happening on such a large scale.
Yeah, and there's also those kind of 4B ladies that they're like, I
Oh,
want to shave my
yep,
head. I never want to be with a
yeah,
man again. All this weird stuff. I mean, this is just such dumb behavior.
yep,
First of all, the ones that said that they want to leave the country if he gets elected, well, they can leave if they want. I mean,
yeah.
I never said that they should leave, but if that's what they said they wanted to do, well, now's their chance to make good on their
Oh,
promises.
I say they put up or shut up. That's what I think.
Right.
If
I
they've
mean,
they've made these claims, they've made oh, we're gonna leave, we're gonna go for Canada, we're gonna move to Europe, whatever. Now Jimmy Kimmel has said he's planning to move to Europe sometime, early next
do
year,
it. Do it. I think you should
and
move today.
go for it.
Stop weeping on live TV, or not
Just
on live TV.
yeah,
Stop
just
weeping
go.
on TV. Just take he's like, "Oh, I was looking for my passport." Good. Find your passport. Take
Yes,
your shit and get out of here. Like nobody cares. Stop making these empty threats.
yes.
There's nothing that annoys me more than these empty threats. I've never made such a threat. I never said this happens, I'll go here, this go. Even if one day, let's say there was a situation that somebody elected, like somebody that I didn't like that much, that I felt that it was time for me to leave, I probably wouldn't tell anybody. I wouldn't call you and say, "Hey, if that guy gets elected, I'm going to leave the country." I think that like I just one day I,
Yeah.
I just quietly leave
Well,
if I really felt that way. But to
yeah.
start declaring all this crap in advance
Oh,
and
yeah.
whining and weeping about it, and at the end you're just sitting there. And where are you sitting in Hollywood, where you're collecting all this money? You know,
Oh,
they
yeah.
pay him a lot of money a year. This Jimmy Kimmel guy. Why is he standing around and weeping?
Yep.
He's the
And
very definition of the American dream. But Tex Rogers says it's funny that the left has meltdowns. I've never seen conservatives do anything like this. I'm not saying maybe some people could be sensitive on every side, but I will say that these kind of hardcore extreme left people, like the kind we see on Twitter, they're behaving in ways that it's very much along the lines of is exactly why this whole group of people were alienating other people, was because of this type of behavior, because
yeah.
this type of behavior is encouraged, which I don't know. It brings me also to what I was kind of noticing this week. Did you see what Jon Stewart said?
Um, I saw a couple of things. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. So yeah, let me, uh, or if I don't know if you've got an article or a video or something to show, but yeah, I'm not sure which specific statement you're talking about.
Superior Nav says, Price of Reason Live, Jimmy Kimmel is leaving USA January 20th. He said it's his last show in January.
Yeah, yeah, he's not the only one. There was who was the other person today?
Good, good. He shouldn't even wait until then.
Yeah,
Take your shit and leave.
It
Get
was
the fuck out.
it was
I
oh, it was America Ferrera who was saying today that
good,
she's
good.
gonna
J
leave, and
she and Jimmy can take a charter flight together.
exactly, and I only have one request. I only have one request of them. When they leave and they get to whatever country they're gonna settle in, go to the US Embassy and give up your US citizenship.
Exactly. Say you don't wanna be citizens anymore.
Yep,
She can go and she can give them that speech about how difficult it is to be a woman.
yep. You go, do whatever you need to do, become a
They can
citizen of some
fly,
other
you
country,
know,
whatever,
there's a
and
lot of
then
countries in the world, that they
yeah,
can go fly and give
you
those
go
speeches to. Let's see
go
how
to
that
France,
works, yeah.
go to Canada. Although I got news for you, Canada's about to see a rightward shift too, so you're gonna be rough on that one, but, yeah, America
They're
Ferrera.
so
Yeah,
prompted.
leaving America Ferrera, leaving America, yes, common
They're
people.
not
That
gonna
is
leave,
that is
though.
surprisingly
They're gonna
ironic,
stay
yes, but
forever. They're gonna stay
oh, yeah.
forever, but
No,
no, they're
yeah.
probably,
There's gonna be excuses. "Oh, well, it would be too hard on my career if I left to live in Paris," or whatever, but, yeah, Jimmy, I could just not hear from Jimmy ever again, as far as I'm
Yeah, I
concerned.
mean, he hasn't been funny in years, and, when I saw that monologue of his, whatever that was, it's beyond not funny. It's like I feel uncomfortable watching it. It's sort of embarrassing, in the sense that I was telling you, he started his career, like, on a show that he's sitting around drinking beers with Adam Carolla, talking about dude stuff. It's called The Man Show, bunch of ladies there, and suddenly now he's, like, standing around weeping, it just really he's lost it. So if he needs to leave, then that's what needs to happen. But as for Jon Stewart, I always think to myself, Jon Stewart, as opposed to some of these other type of late night people, he's a little more sophisticated. I'll even say that back in the day, before all of the TDS stuff, I feel like even if I didn't agree with him on some points, I thought that his take was interesting, and
Mhm.
I appreciated his commentary more back in the day. I thought that he did well when it comes to 9/11 people that work that weren't getting benefits. There is a few things that this guy did that I can chalk up that I think are actually positive, but overall, and especially as the Trump years came, I know he left, Comedy Central, but then in recent years, now he at least in the past year he came back.
Yeah,
I don't.
so yeah, when he left, he was going off to do some other stuff, and then so he ended up doing a show with Apple, on Apple TV for a little while, Jon Stewart did, and,
Right.
and then apparently he was gonna start talking about, he was gonna do a show about, like, about AI and big tech and, stuff they were destroying society or whatever, so Apple basically said, "No, thanks," and pulled the plug. They parted ways. So
Yeah. Yeah, he wasn't able to talk about what he wanted, and then I guess when he went to Comedy Central, they agreed to let him talk about what he wanted as long as he comes back or whatever it is. Uh, I'll say that, I've noticed that since he came back, he touched upon this issue a number of times about how Republicans are sort of, oversensitive about cancel culture, about the woke thing not really being an issue, like that people are making the woke thing a bigger deal than it's supposed to be. He even mentioned, like, kind of downplaying. He said some people want to vote for Trump because they don't like the woke stuff. And I told you that, like, when he mentioned it, he kept trying to downplay it. But for me, he really only emphasized the fact that he said it in those words, only highlighted to me that he knows what's up. He's just trying to dance around it. And
oh, yeah.
there was something, I don't know if I can find it. Let me see if I can find this thing. A while ago, a number of months ago, that thing of cancel culture that was leading up to the elections that he was whining about. And let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, there's been quite a few people, online and, in, various podcasts and whatever, even in some of the, news shows, talking about how, oh, it wasn't woke, it wasn't identity politics that caused what was it? I saw a video the other day with, who was it, that harpy on MSNBC or CNN, Joy Reid,
Yeah.
um, talking about how if you think it was identity politics that caused us to lose the election, you're kidding yourself. We weren't playing identity politics. The only person doing identity politics, that was Trump, who was talking about race and sex and stuff in every single, speech that he made. And it's like, um, wow. Uh, you're trying real hard to cope there.
Yeah, I mean,
That's an
it's like,
incredible level of gaslighting to try
uh,
and say that the left was not talking about identity politics.
yeah, I'm trying to find this thing that it started. Let me see if I can find this thing that I wanted to show you with his. Surely I should be able to find this stupid thing.
Trying to think of
Uh,
some other stars that I had heard that have been talking about their stuff. I guess George Clooney has been taking some serious flack because
he's the one that pushed Biden out, right?
people saying, kind of blaming him in a way for what happened with the election, saying, "Oh, it was him that was, instrumental in pushing out Biden and whatever, and he, endorsed Kamala and whatever." And then him coming back and saying, "No, no, no, I never actually endorsed Kamala. I wanted them to sit back and have an open process to find somebody." Okay, sure, George, whatever. But yeah, trying real hard to make it so that he doesn't sound like he's the one to blame. But of course, yep, he's as
He's
Empress
get
had said, he's
he's
the
getting
closest
what's
white
coming
man
to
to
him.
blame. he's
Yeah,
he's a
no,
white
he's
man,
getting
so it's
what's
easy to
coming to
blame
him.
him.
I told you at that time that I think that he overstepped his boundaries as sort of a Hollywood celebrity slash actor, that he went around trying to like push out one nominee and bring another. And I told you that regardless of any party, I felt that this guy crossed many lines, not to mention that the reason he started getting involved is because his wife had some kind of issue with something that she was trying to do. She was trying to bring like sanctions against the US and some thing in Hague or something, and he didn't like it, so he was trying to call Biden and tell him he didn't like what he said about his wife. And then suddenly, the next thing you know, he's like, "Oh, I have to be honest with you, America. Joe Biden isn't right." Now, the thing is, it's true that Biden is old and probably not right, and probably George Clooney has known this for a very long time. It's very interesting that only after he insulted his wife did he remember that he wanted him out. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But back to this thing. Can you hear it?
No, you're not sharing it yet.
I'm not.
It's not showing up. Um,
Okay. Let's see if this worked.
sorry, there we go.
Called cancel culture has become a central tenet of modern conservatism.
Can you hear it?
They celebrate their being silenced at conferences. They celebrate their being silenced on podcasts and streaming outlets. They celebrate their being silenced with over 700 book titles about being canceled. Why are there so many of these books? Unless you don't know, nobody reads anymore. And by the way, if you already read A War on Woke and Woke Inc., you're really not going to learn anything from woke warriors. Conservatives have an entire industry devoted to complaining about not being allowed to say the things they say all the time. Their victimhood is the entire brand.
You can no longer say somebody is homeless. You have to say they are unhoused. Free phones, food, and clothing sounds like a great deal. A homeless woman in a Democrat-run city.
I'll tell you why this is disingenuous, because the thing is that, first of all, somebody that's like a Tucker Carlson on Fox News, obviously they can say most of what they want to say.
Absolutely.
I can say about myself that the previous regime, I know I'm like a broken record, the previous regime of Twitter targeted my account, not just like some random account, personally targeted my account because I posted that I didn't like some movies about a certain studio that didn't like it, and I am at least 90% sure that somebody just said, "Hey, can you make sure that these tweets don't go anywhere?" And then they didn't. And this is all because I said that I didn't like some you know how we criticize Star Wars and things like that? That was an issue for somebody.
Yeah,
And they're
absolutely.
like, "Oh, what are you talking about? Cancel culture. You can't say anything." I couldn't even say I didn't like a movie.
Yeah. Well, and we have to remember too, when somebody like Jon Stewart talks about cancel culture and he's here showing these, you know, highly paid reporters or commentators on Fox News or wherever, uh, you know, that's not where cancel culture is a danger. Okay. I work in academia. I have seen what this looks like, not firsthand, but I've seen it happen in other schools, other places, and I have seen it, at least to some level, in my own work life. Cancel culture isn't about these big stars with lots of money not being able to say what they want. It's about the little people who can make a statement and lose their job, be unbanked, have their voice shut down, be basically disappeared from various different platforms because they said something somebody didn't like, and someone can destroy their life literally over speech. So it is wild that that can happen just
Paid,
to an
lazy.
average citizen, right? And the real problem, the biggest problem with cancel culture isn't actually the people who are getting canceled. It's the threat that lies over the people who might get canceled, that might lose their jobs, they can't say what they would say. They can't speak up. They don't have free speech anymore because they work in a place where if they were to make a statement, they were to say something that's out of line, that they could be fired. And so what do? They censor themselves. They self-censor. And so now you have people who quite literally don't have free speech because they're too afraid of what could happen to them if they were to say the wrong thing. And I have seen firsthand. I've experienced it myself. Times when you cannot speak up, you cannot speak your mind because there's a likelihood that someone somewhere is going to get horribly offended. They're going to make some sort of crazy argument about you, and you're going to be canned.
Also, some of these polls were so wrong. Why do you think they're so wrong? Because people don't even feel comfortable saying,
Exactly.
whoever voted for, I guess, Harris is comfortable. They go out, they say, we voted for Harris. And whoever voted for Trump, at least a portion of them don't even want to say that they did because they're worried
Exactly.
that,
Because
that other
because
people.
yeah,
Yeah,
because voting for Kamala, Biden, whoever, someone on the left, it's culturally acceptable.
right.
And the
And
people who are responsible for doing, canceling are not gonna come out and cancel you because you stood up and said, "I'm gonna vote for Kamala." But if you were to do the opposite and say, "I'm voting for Trump," wrong person sees it, gets angry, whatever, and then they can, find ways to dox you or whatever. They can find ways to shut you down. And if we didn't have an open platform like X, if we didn't have open platforms like Rumble,
right.
then you wouldn't be able to speak your mind in the same way that we
But
were
I
able to
guess
do
I'm saying
today.
the proof is in the pudding. And
Yes,
I also witnessed, I sat and I've heard people say this before. In especially my personal life, it's not that I'm the most political person. I don't talk to everybody every second about politics. And really, I told you in the past that politicians, I always take them with a grain of salt. I mean, at the end, like we say sometimes, I said it, and one person actually got offended out of people that watch our stream. That I said sometimes in politics you have to choose the lesser evil, and somebody was saying, "Oh, you personally attacked Trump. You said he was evil." I didn't say he was evil. I'm just saying that it's sort of a figure of speech, especially as a
it is.
person that kind of doesn't love politicians or politics in general. So you choose whatever the best you can do, but a lot of times maybe it goes more on policy, and most of the time you're not gonna vote for somebody and think, oh, this is the best person ever. People make whatever decisions they made. I told you on the show that I felt, and I'm really happy that I said this to you prior to the election, that I felt that because of how much uh I think that many people in the American public were sick of the mainstream media narrative, were sick of being told what to think, and kind of trying to get all this kind of brainwashed and gaslighting and all this stuff. In addition, they didn't like cancel culture. They didn't like all this kind of woke stuff, which of course Jon Stewart is pretending that this doesn't exist, which is a lie. They didn't like all of this stuff, and at the end of the day, Donald Trump, in my opinion, became a symbol. I told you at the time that it's sort of the everyman way of raising a middle finger to the establishment and saying, like, screw you, like I'm voting for Trump. Now, the thing is, maybe some people rightfully felt that way, didn't rightfully feel that way, but he managed to tap into that sentiment. And I told you that we were honestly evaluating the campaign. We looked at Kamala when she did the debate, and I think we both agreed that she managed to sort of gain a little bit of an edge on him in that debate. He said some things that were more of substance, but she managed to get under his skin. Whereas later, when she was making mistakes like Rogan and like that Fox News interview, we were, and 60 Minutes and all the other fiascos, we were, very upfront about the fact that she wasn't doing well. Meaning, it wasn't that we were just analyzing it and saying like, oh, you should vote for this, you should vote for that. We were really honestly giving our opinion about how these campaigns were being run. And he managed to tap into all of these things. And for Jon Stewart to sit here and pretend that it meant nothing is an absolute lie. But back to this video, which actually was before the election. This was part of his narrative then.
The agenda-driven liars. What a pompous jackass. Do you even know what my job is? What part of this can't you get through your thick head? My message tonight to these snowflakes is very simple. You people disgust me.
But every snowflake is different. We can't all discuss you. Look, it is absolutely true that in our modern social media-driven society, our interactions are incentivized and monetized for outrage. And it is f***ing exhausting for everyone. But contrary to your conservative book industry, the outrage isn't just coming from the left. It's coming from the left, the right, for the left, and the Swifties and YA readers, and anybody who dares to lift their head up to say f***ing anything. We are not censored or silenced. We are surrounded by and inundated with more speech than has ever existed in the history of communication.
Yes and no. I mean, we are now because Elon Musk bought Twitter and got rid of all the squashing of the narratives, but that's not what happened before he bought it, and that's not what happened before the previous election when the whole media was just pushing Biden and covering up for him in every way possible, and they tried to do the same with Kamala. And this doesn't matter. I don't care who you voted for. It's really obvious. Even the most objective polls will tell you that the mainstream media gives like 90% positive coverage for any Democrat-related thing before an election. That doesn't seem like a fair balance to me.
Well, and again, he says, oh, it's coming from the right, it's coming from the left, it's coming for the right, it's coming for the left. No, you name one person who's been come for on the left who wasn't part of the left already.
And now let me try to find.
You can find a few people. Yeah, they've been canceled. They were on the left, and guess who came for them? Other people on the left. There's not anybody out there who's on the left and been canceled from the right. It doesn't work that way.
Can you still hear?
Yeah.
I am your host.
So this is him after the election now. Now that was before, a few months ago that he's whining about cancel culture, and he did that throughout, like leading up to the election. Continuously pushing that narrative that all these people that are saying that they're being silenced, that's just like they're being victims, pretending to be victims, and it's not true at all, and all this wokeism stuff, it's just nonsense, and that people supposedly like Trump because they don't like woke. And he kept on really using this angle of what nonsense it is. But the more he tried to push this narrative, the more I think that it just kind of, backfired on him. Because and then it's very telling now when he gives his monologue how he's still not able to accept it.
A lot of that money went to, how the did they just text me? I'm in the tub.
I will say that as opposed to like a Stephen Colbert and some of those Seth Meyers, Jon Stewart is more sophisticated. Like I told you, he knows how to put together his thoughts in a way that, seem on the surface, he wants to make it seem a bit more objective. But as he continues to talk, you'll see where he's really going with it.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Well, and let's just say this much. It's still better than Trevor Noah.
Yes, I agree. Trevor Noah, was kind of an outsider.
I thought he was awful.
He kind of came to this country and immediately, like, they expected him to talk about politics all the time. It's just kind of weird because 5 minutes literally before they filmed him, he was in another country. So I don't know. I mean, some people like him, some people don't. I don't really care. Like, I think that Jon Stewart is better than him, and I think that the years that he was here in the past, even if I didn't always agree with him, I kind of enjoyed his commentary. This time, I feel like he's really driven by agendas and stuff more than ever.
Oh, of
So,
course, yeah.
so I don't like it as much, but there are moments that you could tell he's at least better at this. I mean, the thing is that they were so desperate to get Joe Biden in the like out of there and Kamala Harris in there. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of funny how they're all now like backtracking on that. Isn't that their dream? Didn't they get what they wanted? Jen Psaki or whatever her name is said that she had to do the Joe Rogan podcast. That really was a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But even with everything that until now, I think Jon Stewart actually said some true things. There's a point of it that I feel like he starts to flounder around with this woke stuff because it goes back to what he was whining about before. Now, this is the part that I disagree.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is
completely disconnected
no,
from
and now
reality there.
he's gonna do something that I actually saw some of these ads prior to the election, and what he's really gonna aim to show here is how there were people that were Democrats that were trying to talk about topics that were, seemingly quote unquote not woke, that they were more middle of the road. And I'll give my reaction. Not saying here is, first of all, a lot of these Democrats didn't start off their campaigns with this. It's just
Absolutely not.
as the campaign continued to move forward, and it looked like a lot of these representatives were losing steam because they felt that their, political rivals were really talking about the border, talking about economy, and talking about different things. They started kind of pivoting to try to say, well, we're not just a Democrat or Republican. We want to help Americans. You know what I mean? So some took that position, but I don't think that this was sort of these few clips that he showed. I don't think it really demonstrates what was really going on. This is a very kind of skewed vision as to what's happening. And this is what I told you, that Jon Stewart, he's actually better than a lot of these other ones, and sometimes he can even be a little more reasonable and things like that. But at the end, when you reach this part, you can tell that he's still being navigated by the same machine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's absolutely first of all, he said Mondaire Jones. Let me just see for a second, because he showed a specific commercial about Mondaire Jones. I want to try to find the one that I want to show you. Hold on one second.
All right.
Uh,
While you look for that, we got a couple of super chats. So first, Common People said in the chat, he said, "Price, use dark mode or I'll unsub."
I changed it.
And so he sent us a super chat for £5. I'm told that's real money. I'm not sure though. It's all like rainbow colored and stuff. So, but £5 from Common People. It says, "I was only joking, but thank you, Lego Heads Boy Toy."
Hold on one second. I'm gonna share this one for a second, and then I'll
Okay.
go back to the other one. This was when he mentioned Mondaire Jones. These were people that were running against Mondaire Jones, the kind of ads they were showing. Can you hear something? Could you hear that?
No, not hearing anything there yet.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to share it now. So he talked about Mondaire Jones, and now I want to show you not what he showed you about Mondaire Jones, but what other people that were against him were sort of showing. Hopefully, can you hear now?
The pride of New
Can you hear that?
Little loud, actually. I'll turn it down just a bit.
It's AOC. What can I do? She's loud.
She is.
I'll try to turn it down.
the pride of New York right
Better.
now, Mondaire Jones.
AOC's proud of Mondaire Jones because they shared the same radical agenda.
To end mass incarceration and defund the police.
Jones wanted to defund police, just like AOC. Jones even supported early release for dangerous criminals, just like AOC. Liberal Mondaire Jones.
The pride of New York right now, Mondaire Jones.
He'll do anything to make AOC proud. Congressional Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
So even though it's a campaign thing, actually, he did say that he wanted to defund the police.
Yeah.
I mean,
a
that
lot
was
of
his
them
own
did.
words. That's not like, later when people were saying you said to defund the police, you said you wanted to do this, you wanted to do that. He starts releasing these kind of commercials that, advertisements that he tries to seemingly appeal to like a broader audience. But I disagree with what Jon Stewart is saying, and I even managed to refute one of the names. He gave a few names. Here's an example for why what he just said is a lie. And it wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprise me if he must know it too. That's the sad part, that I feel like Jon Stewart has really been compromised in
Well,
recent
and it's
years.
more than just what they put in their commercials, what they're running on too, right? It's the
Right.
statements that they make outside of their commercials. It's the statements they make when they're, on stage, talking to their supporters. It's the statements they make on social media. It's, things that they've said in the past, right? All of those things are on the table when it comes to an election. All of those things now, of course, with the internet, they're all available. We can see all of those things. The internet
Right.
is forever. And
And
so, yeah,
all I was
okay.
sorry,
Yeah,
go on.
just saying, just because it's not in your ad doesn't mean you're not running on that. You're running, on your history. You're
But
running
what I was
on who you
suggesting
are.
was is that even though I showed you an ad from his rivals or the PACs that were doing ads against him, all they did was take him talking in interviews and paste it there. Meaning, it's not. eh, They managed to show what his agenda is just by letting him talk.
Yeah.
So Jon Stewart saying, "Oh, this guy didn't run on this kind of agenda." He mentioned him by name. I disagree. I think the guy made it very clear what his positions were. It's just after he started getting crap and thinking he's going to lose. I don't even know if he ended up losing. I have no idea.
He did.
He did.
Yep.
Well,
He did not get the seat in New York 17. Yeah, it was Mike
you
Lawler.
know what, and that's fine. And maybe all the stuff that he said about defunding the police didn't sit well with people. But that's just my again. These are all kind of reactions to things that were perceived. Basically, you don't just it's beyond just the campaign and running a few ads before the elections. I think that the public perceived these people to be a certain way because for years they were acting and talking about these things.
Mhm.
Even the Latinx stuff is things that was shoved down people's throats for years. So
Yeah.
maybe now in the final ad, somebody told them don't say Latinx. But you know what? The fact that you don't tell people that like in the final ads doesn't mean they're stupid and they don't know what it is that you're cooking.
Yeah. Well, and again, why would they specifically call out these things in these ads? Well, that's because we have other evidence to the contrary. We've seen other statements that they've made or heard other things or read other things in social media, right? Like, why would they
Right.
call out these specific things? Why would they say, "Oh, no, I'm not for defunding the police"? Well, it's because they know that that's an issue that they have to run against. They have to
In many
decry as
cases, you
part of
had
their.
people that were
Yeah.
strong supporters of all these kind of more woke agendas, and they made it known that that was their agendas. And suddenly, when it didn't seem like it was serving them, they suddenly tried to pivot. But people remember when you keep saying that you're in a certain position. And now they're all, he's also talking about guns and stuff. Let's see what happens here. And the fact that they saw that they were losing ground, and they decided to start pivoting. Maybe people didn't buy it. So
Exactly. They and he just said it. He said it. He didn't know what he was admitting, but he said it. They acted like Republicans for the
right.
past 3 months. They
Right.
acted.
Right. It was a Freudian slip or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
good even terminology. But at the end of the day, he basically now said what we all understand. They saw they were losing. They said, well, these Republican things that these policies, they seem to be appealing to wider masses. Why don't we pretend we care about that too? And people can tell when you were the exact opposite until 5 minutes ago, and now you're sort of desperately trying to pretend you're another way completely. People can kind of pick up on that.
Yeah.
And I would say that that may have happened. And this is also, and I've said this before, it's not that I'm telling people what to vote for or what to believe or who to like or who to not like. I'm just saying that I'm looking at this as sort of a person that's like a pundit analyzing it. And I think that the Republicans knew what their strategies were, what their messages were, whereas the Democrats, mainly their strategy was we don't like Donald Trump. They have these kind of initially first all these kind of woke agendas, but at some point when they thought maybe it wasn't working for them, they tried to pivot. But those are two very different things.
Yep.
That they embraced Cheney was kind of weird because they always used to say how awful he was, and suddenly now they're like he's like the best. So that
Yep.
was also strange, really.
Well, this year it was actually more dangerous to be a Democrat in Missouri or a reporter covering a Democrat in Missouri who's shooting firearms, who managed to actually shoot a reporter.
I didn't know that.
Yes, there was a dumbass was out there, firing. I don't remember which guns. I think I had some AR-15, some other stuff, but firing them at steel targets that were far too close and had a ricochet that hit one of the press who was covering the event, and it was a ricochet, so it was limited his velocity, but it hit his arm, cut his arm open, and he had to have
Wow.
had to have medical aid.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
You
And I'm
know,
fine with that. They can be defined by their worst moments, just like they try to define every other candidate by their worst, by their worst
but I
moments,
also
or by
don't
statements
think
they made 10 years ago.
the thing is that that whole situation with the Summer of Love also didn't happen in a vacuum. There were things that led up to it. I think when we go back, there was the Me Too movement. Then you had that George Floyd thing. There was a lot of stuff that happened, and now, interestingly, now like Jon Stewart is also almost admitting that wasn't a good time. You know what I mean? At the time that they wanted to cancel, everybody's so casual about this. Do you remember how they wanted to cancel people that said, at the time, you people were telling you have to say BLM, you have to say like Black Lives Matter or whatever it is, and people that said, wait, don't all lives matter, they were canceled. There were people that lost their jobs because they suggested that perhaps all lives matter. And I think
Absolutely.
that is a very weird thing to cancel people for, because what's wrong with saying that all lives are important? Some things didn't even really make sense to me, yet you couldn't say them, and you got canceled for it. And at the end, that whole Black Lives Matter movement, which people were like myself were saying that it was a very suspicious organization. Where's the money going to? What's happening there? At the end, that ended up being an organization that who knows where the money went. And when I say who knows where the money went, I mean later, like the most mainstream of mainstream publications admitted to what I said. I said, much sooner, I said that I don't know where all the money is going. In addition, not to mention that these same people celebrated when there was a terror attack overseas in the Middle East. A lot of very strange things happening with this organization that everybody kept saying that you have to say what they're saying. You have to say it, or you're a terrible Istanphobe if you don't admit it and say what
Mhm.
they say. And bow down and apologize and I don't know what. And at
Yep.
the end of the day, we're not police officers. We were not involved in that incident. And to sort of pin whatever they felt about that thing on an entire country, go out in the middle of a pandemic that already was crippling businesses and burned billions of dollars of businesses to the ground. Sometimes in neighborhoods with people that they supposedly are championing. Meaning there were neighborhoods that there were actually Black business owners, and they still burned their businesses down because they
yeah.
wanted to prove a point to I don't even know who. So there was so much wrong going on, and then meanwhile you have all those kind of Nancy Pelosi saying, "Oh, it's the summer of love. It's so great," and the CNN coverage and all this bogus crap. And like Jon Stewart just like talks about it as though it's some little footnote. It's not a footnote. That was a big fucking deal.
Yep. Yep.
So that's why.
Yeah.
So
A
yeah,
lot of people forget that Clinton was not anointed into office by this amazing amount of support. Uh, that there was a very good chance that Bush would have won that election if had it not been the candidacy of Ross Perot that came in.
This is the thing you were talking about with a guy that was injured.
Yeah, so this is Lucas Kuntz. He was running for U.S. Senate, and they were out shooting targets in their backyard. By the way, they had some explosive stuff sitting on the table right in front of them that they were shooting. Some of the stupidest stuff I've ever seen. And then they had these steel targets that were only about 15 feet away, which is not nearly far enough. And so, of course, what happened? They were firing their AR-15s. Kuntz was one of them firing at the time. And there was a fragment ricocheted and hit this reporter, struck him, and it cut his arm open. And they say, Kuntz, leapt in to help him, right afterwards, but whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter. He lost that race against Josh Hawley. So he's not
I'm
gonna
sure this incident didn't exactly help him either.
Oh no! Oh, they looked ridiculous, and Adam Kinzinger was there with him. I mean, and they looked absurd. I mean, it was such a fake event. It was ridiculous. But yeah,
I understand.
he almost got to the point there. He almost got to the point that I think is the real point, that I think finally you've got some people who are coming around to this understanding that, was it particularly woke that was the problem by itself? Probably not. Was it the candidate by herself that was the problem? No, probably not. Was it a lot of the things that have happened in this, current administration? Was it that alone? Probably not. But you add all of those things up together and you look at the state of the economy and you realize that things like, trans surgeries for people who are in prison, and a lot of these, all of these other ideas that we have around that are part of identity politics, and uh, you know gender, stuff, whatever. All of those things are luxury beliefs, right? Those are luxury. Those are things that you can entertain when things are going well, when we're succeeding as a society, when we're succeeding as a people. But a lot of people out there in America today are not doing that well. And the rich people in Hollywood, the rich people in New York who are on, news channels and whatever, they can talk about how, oh, it's not that bad. Look how great the economy is. Look how great it's been in the stock market. Guess what? People who can't afford to put food on their table don't give a crap about the stock market. They don't care about your luxury beliefs about, well, we need to, do all of these things to end racism and whatever, when they don't see racism in their daily lives. They're not experiencing it, and they've never been a part of it. They don't believe what you have to say about that stuff. There's a concept you think about in behavioral sciences and stuff called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And when you look at these ideas, there are certain things that build on each other. And it starts with your physiological needs. You need shelter, you need food, you need sleep, you need to be, you need to be able to take care of yourself and your family. There's a lot of people out there in the United States that didn't have that. They're struggling for that kind of thing. They're not going to be worried about somebody's self-esteem or whether they feel like they're like they're being their authentic selves. All they care about is just being able to pay their bills and keep food on the table. And then, above that, you get to other needs like safety. A lot of people in the United States do not feel safe. They don't feel safe going out at night. They don't feel safe with all sorts of, illegal aliens living in their neighborhoods that they feel threatened by. And I'm not saying that every single illegal person that comes into the country is some sort of violent offender, but there's been a lot of them. And we know there is because we've seen evidence that countries like Venezuela are simply emptying their prisons and sending those people to the United States. And then, there's other things that just in that hierarchy of needs just build on each other. But when you don't meet those basic levels of things, of feeling safe, of feeling like you're able to take care of yourself and your family, and pay for your rent, and put food on the table, then you're not going to let the administration that's in power right now keep that power. You're going to try something else. You're going to look for somebody else to provide a solution. And that's where a lot of people went. They said, they're not getting it done. They've spent way too much time focusing on all sorts of other wild stuff. And so they said, no, you know what? Yeah, we're going to try something different. So, that's where
I think
things
that's
went.
what
So
happened. I think that they took the American public for granted.
they absolutely
They
did.
took a lot of their voters for granted, and they were paying too much attention, in spite of what Jon Stewart says, too much attention on all the kind of identity politics, all the woke stuff or whatever. The reason why it's ridiculous, whether you're a Jon Stewart trying to cover it up with all these kind of gaslighting, or whether you're the New York Times trying to sort of analyze it, in all of them, they still come off as kind of pompous and annoying. Uh, either trying to deceive you into thinking one thing or another, or in the case of the New York Times and these kind of sometimes even after the election, some of these kind of pundits were sitting at CNN or whatever and talking with each other. Even when they say stuff like this, it's sort of this kind of pomposity of, well, maybe we have to be more in touch with people, that they don't like all this stuff that we love. You know what I mean? But they don't do it in a way. It's not like they really care what the other people think. They're just trying to understand why they lost. It's not like anybody is thinking that maybe they're overdoing it for real. They're just thinking that maybe we can pretend not to overdo it so people will vote for us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you get what I'm trying
Absolutely.
to say? I don't feel like there's real change here. I feel like it's just a bunch of people saying, next time, how could we pretend that we don't like all this kind of woke stuff and identity politics and fool people? Kind of what, like, Jon Stewart, like you said, kind of let slip out that the last 4 months they were pretending to be somebody else.
Yeah, they were acting like
and now they're going to try even more.
Not actually accepting those values, not actually, trying to change their approach. No, they were just acting like those. So, but before we move on to another subject, real quick, we got a super chat here from the Dead Man.
Oh, okay.
For $4.99. Again, thank you, the Dead Man, big supporter of the channel. We appreciate it. And the Dead Man says, when it comes to politicians, nobody can claim the moral high ground, even the ones you like. There are very few that are pure. I would say you're right. Yeah,
I agree
absolutely.
with that. You know, that's why I don't get very excited about politicians. You vote for whoever you vote for, and it's fine. I don't sit around and put people on pedestals like that. Usually, if you're on that level that you've been elected to be the president of the United States, you're probably at minimum some kind of, like, slippery businessman or whatever it is you want to say. But I guess what I'm saying is you don't get to that position without, you don't make that kind of omelet without breaking some eggs, or I don't know what it is that I'm looking to say, but you don't just suddenly become the president of the United States. And that's not exclusive to a certain party. Once you're in the mix, even a candidate for that, you have to be a certain type of person. And again, it comes with the territory. I'm not sitting around. I don't care. I think that in the past we kind of knew politicians were politicians. We would vote for somebody and that's it. Now it's like you have to have this kind of personal connection and, like, support everything this person says or does, which it's not really my character to be that way. But at the end of the day, in these elections, like I said, it didn't really matter already how people specifically felt about Trump. He was more as like a symbol. I think that the more the mainstream establishment, the more sort of this old guard of legacy media and kind of Hollywood elites and whatever, the more they kept pushing how much they didn't like him and tried to make every effort to just shut him up and squash him, it kind of made you think to yourself that you kind of a bit rooting for him. You know what I mean? It was him against this entire establishment. So you kind of felt somehow they did him a favor without even knowing it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
They made him the underdog, and they made it very clear how underdog he was by continuing to attack him. And the fact that he managed to win like this in spite of everything they've done, it's really very telling. And in my opinion, it's more telling of everything that's wrong with them.
Yeah. Yep. And there's going to be, like I have said, there's going to be some fascinating tales to be told from behind the scenes.
Oh, there will be interesting books written.
Of how some of these campaigns got things so wrong, about how the pollsters, some of them got things so wrong. So, some of them have ruined their careers. I mean, they were so far off and so determined to try and sell one candidate as being a lock, right? She's gonna win it. I think a lot of them are now deeply embarrassed and trying really hard to try and explain what they did. And there are a few pollsters that were very honest, and I think some of them were very straightforward in saying, look, there's a 3-point margin of error here. There's a pretty good chance Trump has all of those 3 points, which would mean he's ahead in every single one of these swing states. There were a few people that were saying that before the election. Not a lot, but a few. And it comes back to what we were talking about earlier with, people not wanting
Okay.
to admit that they were going to vote for a particular
Here's
person.
the thing. This was a guy that they said
Yeah,
was
Lichtman. Yeah,
he's
he's
the
the
expert. He was the number one
yeah.
expert in the world in predicting elections.
Nostradamus.
And
Yes,
the thing
he's
is that, first of all, I don't even know how he got this title because I looked at his credentials and basically they're no different than mine. Usually, I mean, I'm not a published professor and like I just said it to my friends, but I think most elections I pretty much knew who would be elected. So I'm not really impressed with this guy. But in any case, it's funny to see the reasons why he claimed that she was going to lose. Did you see that she was going to win? Number
mhm.
one, Democrats uniting behind Harris prevented catastrophe for the party. Uh, could have been whatever. I don't know why this was considered a factor. Two, don't trust the polls. Yeah, I mean, I agree, don't trust them, but not in the way you think. Three,
Yeah.
Harris has charisma and a unique electoral position. Does she? Does she? That's a very
Yeah.
strange take from Lichtman.
Well, women are now the majority of the electorate, and you're just assuming that all women are automatically going to be voting
Yeah, he
for a
won
woman.
the women vote, I think. So I don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Number four, elections about governing, not just campaigning. Again, not really sure what this guy is talking about, but I don't know why he's a famed predictor. He until now, these are the and the funny thing is when I read it months ago, because I think he said it first like a few months ago, and when I read it and when I looked at it, I thought to myself, none of this makes sense to me. And I was cautious about it because I said, you know what, this guy is the number one predictor. He's such a big expert. I don't want to. Maybe I'm wrong. No election has ever been more venomous. Again, don't really know why are these the five reasons that makes him think that she's going to win. I don't really know, really.
Yeah. Yeah,
Nevada
there were so many pollsters that got it
politics
wrong.
expert predicts Paris will eke out a win in the state. All just nonsense.
Yeah, and there was the other one. Her name's not popping into my head, but it was predicting that her polls were showing that Harris had opened up like a 10-point lead on Trump in Iowa, and he ended up taking that state by like almost 4 points. So
Here, he had more things. These are the keys, like this Lichtman guy. These are the metrics. And he asks questions. Did the White House party gain House seats during the midterm elections? Is the sitting president running for re-election? Is the White House party avoiding a primary contest? Is there a third party challenger? Is the short-term economy strong? Has long-term economic growth been good in the previous two terms? I don't know why all of this made him think that he was asking these questions and thinking it has to be her. This guy, I think he's a sham. I'm sorry. I'm not impressed with his track record. I don't think he's the best predictor ever. And I feel like, let's put it this way: when Bush ran, I thought it would be Bush. Then when he ran for re-election, I thought it would be Bush. Then when Obama ran, I thought it would be Obama, and it was. Then when he ran again and again, I thought it would be Obama. And then when Trump won against Hillary, I predicted that as well. Biden, I kind of, I didn't know how it would play out, but I thought that that's what would end up being, even though one could question about what happened in those elections. That's a different conversation. At the
yeah,
end of the day, I predicted that he would be sworn in as the president. In this one case, this time, I was very cautious because we're really kind of in a crossroad where I knew that there was the mainstream media and I knew that there was the non-mainstream media, and I had wondered to myself who people were listening to. And since it was such a new territory, especially with Elon buying X, I just wasn't sure. So I couldn't just decisively say it. I went along with the idea that perhaps it was a close race, but I guess it wasn't very close at the end.
not in the end.
But I wanted to also touch upon this thing. Let's see. This thing, because we were talking about studios.
Yeah.
This was
Yeah.
interesting that David Zaslav said Donald Trump's reelection could offer media business a pace of change and an opportunity for consolidation. What do you think he meant by this?
Well, gosh, I have to read kind of what he was actually talking about, but it seems like it's a pace of change and an opportunity for consolidation. I wonder if he's saying that perhaps some of these studios are some of these studios are going to be going broke. That would be opportunities for consolidation. Yeah, wow, that's an interesting statement. I'm not sure. Yeah, would have to take a look at the article.
Let's see what it says here. We have an upcoming new administration. It's too early to tell, but it may offer a pace of change and opportunity for consolidation that may be quite different. That would provide a real positive and accelerated impact on this industry that's needed. These are great companies. The best content is going to win. There need to be some consolidation in order to have these businesses be stronger and have better consumer experiences. Is he trying to say that he wants to merge with other companies? What is he trying to say exactly? What's he consolidating exactly?
Hmm.
I've been saying for a long time that this is an industry that really needs to meaningfully consolidate. It's really driven by the consumer experience. Consumers put on their TV and they see 16 apps, and each of those is doing different pricing. You're sitting there with your phone, Googling where a show is or sport is. You're going from one to another, and there's so many.
Yeah, I mean, talking about maybe streaming consolidation. That's not that is something I actually would not be surprised to see over the next couple of years. There's so many different apps and so many different subscriptions, and you know that a lot of these are not making money. There's no way they can be making money. They're spending so much to produce content for, you know, for their different subscription services, and they're just not picking up a lot of customers. So, I mean, we know that, Disney Plus is struggling. The only reason they're even able to show any kind of, perceived profit is because we know that they bought Hulu. And so they're adding those numbers in, and then now it makes it look like it's profitable because Hulu has been a fairly, profitable property for some time. There's, all of these other apps. You got your Paramount Plus, you got, Peacock, and all these. And I've had some of these apps. I occasionally I'll have one for a little while and then dump it, and I'll come back and try another one. And a lot of these apps are terrible, and they don't have a lot on them that's particularly interesting. It's so spread out. It's so just scattershot what you can find here and there, and then they keep moving content between services too, and it's just infuriating. And I think a lot of people are just kind of tired of it. And I think some of these streaming apps, these different streaming platforms, are probably going to have to merge in some way. There's going to have to be some consolidation, or a lot of these platforms are not going to survive.
I want to just say, Whalem03 says Elon bought Twitter for 44 billion and made 70 plus billion after Trump won, but they said he was stupid to buy it. To be fair, though, I don't know that Elon really was thinking so many steps ahead when he bought X. I think that I personally think that he bought it for a very simple reason. I think he was on Twitter. He made some comments, and they basically treated Elon like they treat Price of Reason, meaning they shadow banned some tweet of his, or they did something that seemed off to him. He didn't like it and annoyed him, and I think that that's where problems started. Like I think that
Mhm.
actually that personally annoyed him, that he couldn't use the app the way that he wanted, and something didn't seem right to him. And when you're Price of Reason and you annoy Price of Reason, there's not much that I can do. All I can do is be like, hey, you silence me, you shadow ban me, you ruin my tweets, you ruin my account. But when you do it to the richest man in the world, I guess there's a different outcome.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, he does have FU money, right? I mean, he was able to
Right.
tell Bob Iger FU, so
Right, and the thing is that even all this stuff that he's like, oh, they're like, I also don't think he had this kind of I don't know that he knew that he was going to support Trump or not support. I think that the fact that all these kind of, left-leaning media and establishment and mainstream and all that Disney and whatever, we're all trying to collude together to make sure he doesn't have sponsors so that his platform falls apart. Again, if let's say he had all of the money. Okay, how do I explain this? If let's say all Elon Musk had was $44 billion and that's all he had in the world, and he didn't have any other company, and he bought Twitter, well, they could destroy it, and then maybe he'd be out, and it would be the end, or he'd take a serious hit. But once you're Elon Musk and this Twitter thing is just like a side thing, you know what I mean? Like he has the SpaceX, he has Tesla. This was just some additional thing that, he didn't actually even need to take this upon himself. It's not like even if all the money disappeared, he's not going to live on the street.
Exactly.
So I guess what I'm saying is he had so much money, like you said, the FU money. He had so much It's not only that he had FU money; it's how much he had of it. He had so much of it that he could FU with Twitter and go up against all these people that wanted to cancel him and to make sure he doesn't get the ads and do all this other weird stuff and still get ahead. But I think that if they just would have played ball with him from the beginning, he may have been more moderate or nicer. I think that they really pushed him.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Basically, I guess what I'm saying is when I told you that I think that the everyman suddenly saw Donald Trump and said, hey, you know what? This guy is like, a vote for this guy is a vote like a middle finger to the establishment. I feel like Elon Musk woke up one morning and felt the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
the other thing, and I know a lot of it's irritated a lot of people has been, and I think it was something that irritated Elon a lot too, was the illegal immigration problem. I think that was also a huge part of a lot of people's vote and why they turned and started supporting Trump.
Yeah, I mean the thing I think that one of the problems is that a lot of gaslighting initially came from the other side. They said, and this is happening also in some places that are blue. If you notice, a lot more people voted for Trump in New York than I think were expected, and same maybe with New Jersey, because I think that especially in New York, there's so many immigrants that they brought there, and their presence is felt at times. I mean, the crime is up. There's a lot of things and beyond. It's not that I'm trying to be like, say, oh, there's immigrants or there's crime or whatever it is. I think that when you take a large group of people that maybe don't have money and you throw them in a big city, it's a recipe for disaster. Forget about the feelings and the political correctness of it. Just taking and just when they did with Ohio or with Cleveland, whatever it was, that they dumped 10 to 20 million people or something from the Haitians. I don't know if it was there that
Yeah,
they
that's Springfield,
Springfield.
Ohio. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that it's not a matter of oh, you're not being nice. It's a matter of there was a community there, and suddenly this community had tens of thousands of people that they weren't expecting. This is a recipe for disaster again, and I think that the fact that the Democrats would constantly just pretend this isn't a thing, that also really cost them. And I don't see Jon Stewart and any of these other weirdos talking about that.
Nope. Yeah.
It's like they're pretending it didn't exist. They're like, well, if we pretend it didn't exist, maybe it didn't exist. And yeah, I think the other thing is, I've met people that are Latino and Latinas that maybe came to the US and they've made something of themselves and they have families and they're established here. And when they saw, that this border crisis was happening, it was sort of something that they didn't like, because if they did all this proper and they made lives for themselves, why would they be supporting now bringing a bunch of criminals or I don't know what? I'm not saying that all the people. I'm not saying that all the people that would cross or come in are all criminals, but I'm saying this is not a good look for that community. You know what I'm saying? Like this idea that the Democrats, and this is on the verge of them being sort of, I don't know if to say racist, but it's like, oh, you're Latino, shouldn't you be happy that we're letting all these Latino people through the border? I think that in and of itself is a dumb thought. And it's taking your constituents for granted, thinking that they're just going to love this. In many cases, they didn't love it at all. Why would they?
Yeah. It's so much gaslighting and so much just infuriating. Just like, oh, we're just going to ignore that this is out there. We're just going to pretend like, I don't know. It's so weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody, Rondon Affair said flipping California would be insane. Listen, he didn't flip New York or California, but I do think he probably had the strongest support in these places you know, that stronger than anything people initially expected.
Yeah, I think if I think I saw something somewhere that he had the most votes any Republican has gotten in the state of California since Ronald Reagan.
I would believe that. You know, also we see so many times how things happen. You know, that San Francisco, before the whole coup, I actually went a number of years ago, not even a million years ago, maybe a few years before the coup. I went to San Francisco, and I was, you know, doing some stuff in the city, looking at different places, and there were portions that I looked that already had kind of congregations of homeless people, and it looked like there was a significant amount of them. In You could really notice them in their presence, but I would say that it was still sort of confined to certain areas or something like that. But that was I guess the beginning of what just continued to grow and grow as a problem. And now it's like, you know, I mean, I don't know because I haven't been there again. I admit it, but anytime I see videos and like documentation online and even what people are saying, it seems like a very unsafe place to walk around. Places that even I walked there, you know, and felt free to walk around, just there were a few areas like that. Now I think that it's much worse. And a lot of these stores moved out of there. And who lives in a place like this and says, yes, this is great, I want more of this?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Or
yeah,
at least
yeah,
there's enough people that don't want that. Obviously, these are blue states, so I guess a lot of people like that, but obviously there's a lot of people that kind of said, "No, I don't really like this." And, yeah, I mean, I've said before that I'm kind of a middle of the road kind of guy myself, but, I don't think that the Democrats were able to capture middle of the road people either.
no, no. I mean, and you saw a lot of local races around the country that flipped. Maybe not, you know, whole states that flipped, but you know, you had people like George Gascon, who he he was the most liberal, most progressive district attorney in the nation, and people in California said, "We're getting robbed. Our businesses are shutting down. Our, you know, businesses are leaving our city because they can't afford to operate here anymore because you won't enforce the law, and so you're gone." And they replaced him with a more conservative, more tough on crime DA. So you know, it's crazy, right? You would never expect someone in LA to vote for someone who was more conservative, but they did.
Phantom Monk says my uncle lived near San Francisco. It was a nice place once. Yes, I mean at the time, even a number of years ago that I was there, I saw the initial kind of how these problems were in their infancy or early on. They spiraled out of control, but really it's been on a very destructive path. Uh, but I guess what else was I going to say? There's also the matter we wanted to talk a little bit about the gaming stuff. You
Yeah.
know, Kotaku, man, this is something maybe you can shed some light
Oh
on.
no. About the journalist formerly of Kotaku.
Yeah, I'm trying to find.
Yeah. It seems like Alyssa Mercante, she there was some stories that she had left Kotaku. Not really sure how that particular parting took place yet. We haven't really heard anything other than she's sort of admitted that right now she's freelancing. I believe there was something written by her on uh, I think it was Rolling Stone, I think, that had a publication of hers she was freelancing for. But now it appears that she's going to she's going to be doing some sort of Patreon or something. And her first post was her taking a picture of her ass. So
Yeah, I
apparently it's
saw
going to be
that.
some
You
sort
feel
of
free to
a
share whatever you want.
oh god.
I saw some of that, but
Yeah, I don't want to share her ass with it. I don't even
No,
want to
it's
look at it
fine.
myself
First of all,
again.
what I wanted to say is that she's trying to make it seem like she left, but I really suspect that she was pushed out.
Well, yeah. So it seems that Geo Media, which is the company that owns Kotaku, their parent company, they have announced, I guess, another round of layoffs, another series of layoffs, about a year after they had some other layoffs last year. So a number of writers not only have were terminated earlier this year, and then there was large layoffs last year, but it sounds like there's another round of layoffs coming as well. And so, yeah, she took off just in time, right before those layoffs. Perhaps she knew those were coming, but yeah, mm, yeah, it's interesting. I'm not surprised. Kotaku has just been a mess for a long time, uh, and so seeing a bunch of their writers departing is not really much of a surprise. I think a lot of the people who were left there were just biding their time until they were terminated. And like I said, perhaps Alyssa Mercanti knew something ahead of time that was coming, had maybe heard it was happening or whatever, and wanted to leave on her own terms. But yes, she's apparently going to be out there. She's begging for money to keep her afloat. I'm sure she has so many fans that are going to be out there throwing her
I mean, she
money.
said she's starting a Patreon. I really don't know who really would pay for a Patreon. I mean, I think what she's going to discover here is what we always say about these kind of woke movies and stuff, where they think there's an audience for it, and then it turns out that there isn't much. I mean, I told you that I recently went to this kind of gaming panel with representation and LG community thing, and that wasn't a full house. That place, I was sitting in a room that was absolutely not full, where these four people are sitting around and blabbing about how important queer representation is in every single video game, and how and they seem obsessive about it. And meanwhile, that you're sitting there and you're at a convention with I wonder how much is like at Comic-Con. How many people do you think?
Oh, geez, I would have no idea.
Tens of thousands of people,
Yeah, it
right?
would be. Yeah, it would have to be tens of thousands.
So
Yeah.
out of tens of thousands of people that came, that especially like these kind of things, there's a panel, people are getting an alert, and you can't fill a room with it's not exactly like this was the biggest auditorium in the place. There were like several rows, and they couldn't fill that. Your biggest and most serious audience member was me. Do you get what I'm saying? And I wasn't their target audience. So do you get what I'm trying to tell you here? That it shows that maybe you're it's like you're a legend in your own mind situation, that most people don't really care about all the stuff that you're talking about. And if you want to hijack games and make it all about that, then people aren't going to like that, or it's not going to appeal to the general public. And I feel like she's going to learn this as well. Now she's as a Patreon, she's trying to get money from people. Well, I don't know. I mean, she may have gotten money from Kotaku, but I don't know that regular people would want to pay her anything.
I don't know who would possibly be interested in giving her money on a Patreon. Other than, I mean, come on. Apparently, she's happy to show her various body parts to people who give her money. She's indicated that much. So maybe that's where she's going with it. I
The
don't
Deadman
know.
Sins, I think Nerdrotic had her on FNT, which I thought was funny. I think that was Chrissy Mayer dressed up as her, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I would be
Yeah.
very surprised if she was on FNT, even though anything is possible. But I don't think she was on FNT.
Yeah, I'm not sure she'd be able to handle that for very long. There's been a few. Let's see, what are some other things going on gaming wise? There's been well, of course, we've seen Dragon Age Veilguard. I think we had mentioned that at one point. We talked about that before. Um, the Apparently it has been received so poorly that well, here, let's see if I can share one of these articles here. Oh, where'd it go?
There was an article I wanted to.
Well, I can't seem to find it, but anyway, I can share this one just while we talk about it here.
Wait, there was this thing. I don't know if you
Okay.
saw this article. Which one are you sharing?
There was one about that was from earlier this week. Accused of hating white people. No, I hadn't seen that one. Yeah,
This
that
is
was
from
John F.
Fandom
Trent.
Pulse. I just want to
Yeah.
say John F. Trent, he was writing for that Park Place, and prior he was the editor of Bounding into Comics. So he's now teamed up with John Della Rose, and they're doing this Fandom Pulse thing. So they did this
Yes.
article today. I didn't actually read all the way through it, but I just thought it was interesting. Maybe you heard about it.
I hadn't seen anything specifically about that, about being anti-white, but I've seen a lot of other coverage of this game that's been very, very poor. They've seen a massive, supposedly massive number of returns for the game. People are demanding refunds digitally and demanding refunds returning physical media. And in fact, there's been so many returns of physical media, people coming and selling the game back to companies like GameStop, that now the value of the game at GameStop, usually, like, a brand new title, if that were to be returned and you were to sell that back to GameStop, you're not going to get a ton back necessarily. I mean, you'd sell, if it were a brand new $60 game, if you're selling it back within the first few weeks, you might get back half of that. But their price now, GameStop currently has the trade-in value for a $70-ish game. The trade-in value is $22.
I believe it.
It's the worst trade-in value for a game, like in its first few weeks, like that anyone's ever seen, because nobody wants this thing.
But by the way,
Nobody's
just
interested in it, and returns are through the roof.
a quick comment. If you're enjoying the stream, whatever platform you're watching it on, make sure to like it. And if you happen to have stumbled upon this channel and you enjoy what we do here, we do this twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday at 11:45 p.m. Eastern. If you enjoy that, also want to get alerts, make sure to follow and subscribe and like. And if you want to comment in the comments, that's also cool. Also, Professor R2, you have your own account on Rumble and on X, and you guys should follow Professor R2. Professor, if you want to put those links in the chat, that's also cool. I don't really know how to do it, but I know you know how to do it. So if you feel like it, you should. And just want to point that out, that any kind of interaction always helps. Always helps us, uh, get more exposure, more people kind of learning about our streams, which is cool. Even though we're always happy with there's a lot of people that regularly come here. We appreciate all of you. And towards the end, I'm also going to read some names out. And now back to you, Professor. Just talk about whatever it is that you were talking about.
Well, yeah, I would just say, like, the trade-in value for this is just an absolute disaster. The GameStop doesn't want to buy it back. They've already had too many people try to sell this back, and they're not selling used copies of this. Nobody's interested right now. The best that anyone can estimate, based on sales that they've seen on on Steam, sales that have been seen, physical copies that have been moving. People who know, have the inside track at some of these companies like GameStop, Best Buy, and so on, would indicate that probably this game, which is supposedly this huge hit, has only sold about 500,000 copies, if even that, which is an absolute disaster. BioWare is they've got to be in total panic mode at this point. That is potentially a studio ruining failure. But of course, we know that it's not the same people running that studio that ran that studio when they were making, great trilogies like Mass Effect. It's not the same people who were there making the previous Dragon Age games, right? They've chased off all of their really experienced programmers. They've chased off all of the white men who were there, right? Because
Yep.
they wanted to institute all of these inclusion, diversity, equity policies in there. They wanted to promote people who were, you know, who were of certain identities and not, give the experienced people the positions that they should have. And so yeah, they've all left. All the really talented people have all gone, and all that's left behind are the people who have the right approved identities, right? So
Yep.
it's bad news, and it's you know uh they get what they effing deserve, I guess. That's what it's one
There's
way
been
to
a
put
lot
it,
of that
right?
going on in the past few weeks that, people seem to be getting what they deserve, I guess.
But yeah, that's going really poorly. That's been one of the biggest stories in gaming over the past month, is just what an absolute collapse that has been for BioWare. Everyone promoting this game and saying that not only that the sales are absolutely abysmal, but many people coming out to talk about just how incredibly bad all of the identity politics and stuff is in this game. It's absolutely like you're just marinating in it. It's not just one scene, right? It's not just this one conversation.
No, it's the whole
It's
concept here.
it's just woven into the game everywhere. There's just all of these things, and it's like it was some sort of therapy session for maybe the creative director at the studio that
Right,
happens
who
to
were
be
her,
trans.
they themselves is going through whatever. But
Yeah.
again, it brings me back, and I really wish it's like maybe I should. Maybe I'll have time this week. I'll try to do a video about it. I wish people were there to see me in that panel, because in that panel, I met people that are either tied. There was one lady who I think even has some kind of indirect tie to like Sweet Baby Inc. and things like that. And when you see these people and they're kind of, I witnessed their bubble in front of me and how obsessed they are and how out of touch they are with the reality. When I then see this game, like this Dragon Age game, it doesn't surprise me. Even on this panel, which was backed by Gaming Magazine. When I say Gaming Magazine, it's GAY
Mhm.
MING
Yeah.
Magazine, and these guys who are SBI adjacent or SBI former or tied to it, or I don't know what these guys. You know, if you sat and saw what they were talking about, you'd really understand what I mean. They were complimenting. They were saying how great this Dragon Age game was because of how quote unquote it was inclusive for these type of like queer storylines. But at the end, and that's what I keep telling you, I'm sitting there in a room that's not full at a panel that nobody cares about, and these four people are like so proud that Dragon Age is now, really pushing all this propaganda and how it's so important. And I don't understand why it's important.
Yep. And then here I'll share. Here's another thing I can share. This is something that happened earlier today. There's a video. Smash JT. Oh, you'll have to share or unshare yours or share mine or whichever to show. But yeah, there we go. Uh, Smash JT did a video on this actually earlier today, but this is the article that he has on his website talking about this. Essentially, that early on, IGN they gave the Veilguard a 9 out of 10, which we know IGN they're bought and paid for. We've seen it over and over again. It's embarrassing how much they'll give things these high scores when they don't deserve them because they don't want to lose their access because they're access media, right? They don't want to piss anybody off, so they give these games crazy high scores. Well, we know after the fact, having seen the review that was written here about the Veilguard, that they gave that review to TJ Hafer, who is now Leanna Hafer. So they gave this review for this game to someone who has an ideological uh, dog in this hunt, right?
I understand.
They gave this to somebody who was obviously going to give it an incredibly good review. And so now they have another article that's come out written by someone else, Matt Perslow, talking about how it's the Veilguard is at war with itself, and it really hammers at how this particular game is. It's a mess. That certain parts of the game don't work particularly well. The combat isn't all that fun. It's very shallow as far as a lot of the systems and the different things that are part of how the game is constructed. And yeah, they wanted to try and sell this as a game of the potential game of the year, and of course it never was. Right, it was actually not a very good game, but of course they had to come out at the front, right at the front. They had to make sure it gets a 9 out of 10 so they don't lose
Right.
access. But then they have another article coming out and just in the past day really showing that maybe perhaps it probably should have gotten the 7 out of 10 they give everything else. So yeah, it's fascinating everything that's been happening with that game, that it's just so incredibly poor. It's so ideologically captured, and that no one really wanted to admit it. At least Access Media didn't want to admit it initially. And yeah, they really hoped this was going to take off. They were going to sell so many copies of this game, and
These people are delusional, and I
yeah,
hope that a lot of these companies start learning that they're making very divisive games. It's not going to work out. Some of these games, it costs so much money and so much time to develop that if you're just going to alienate people, there's no way to sustain this. These companies have to start making changes, and I hope they will. And I hope, and this is also something that we were talking about in the thumbnail here. I wonder, and time has yet to show us if right now we're at some kind of turning point where a lot of these companies are going to realize what happens and try to make a change, whether it's Hollywood studios or game developers, or are we going to just see them go all in, like even more? They're just going to go complete 100% TDS. I just wonder if they're going to go that or actually try to make a change.
yeah, who knows? Somebody mentioned something in the chat. Common people mentioned, and I was gonna I hadn't even thought of mentioning this, but uh, they'll give a game like Veilguard a 9. They gave The Penguin a 5 out of 10.
Oh, I believe that.
I'm
They're
not gonna
always
say,
they're always annoying. Like they're always whatever's annoying. That's what they do.
yeah, I'm not gonna say that The Penguin is God's gift to television. It had its weak points, but compared to a
Certainly,
lot of the stuff that we've seen in recent years, it was
it was
fantastically well written.
it was well done. I agree with you. It wasn't perfect. I could sit and nitpick as well, but
Yeah.
overall, you sit down. You want to feel like there's serious people working on a show that's not that has some quality to it. And I think that the Penguin actually delivered upon that. It wasn't
Yeah.
something that I thought that I wanted, but I did enjoy watching it. I got into it, and I thought that overall it told a good story. And that's more than you can hope for. And yeah, I
Yeah.
saw the IGN reviews, and yeah, they gave them bad reviews, and I didn't quite understand why.
It's just insane, that they would anyway. Yeah, that I mean, compared to all of the other stuff that we've seen, uh, you know, that's been put on television in recent, they would give Ahsoka an 8 out of 10, but The Penguin gets a 5.
Yeah,
Screw
I mean,
you. Screw you, IGN, please. That is one of the best written and best acted shows I have seen in a long time. Again,
it's
yeah,
hard to take
it
them
has its
seriously.
problems. It has its problems, but none of them are that serious. It actually has a well told, pretty tight narrative of a story. It had some interesting characters, and yeah, uh, some of the people in this show are downright despicable, awful characters, but that's who they're supposed to be. That's who they're written to be, and that's fine. And we saw a really impressive performance under all of that makeup. Colin Farrell.
Yeah, I think Colin Farrell really did a good job here. I
I
mean,
completely forgot it was him at
you
some
forget
point,
it's him.
right?
You forget that it's him. That's how good the performance is. I agree with you, but I guess so. Yeah, I first of all, we didn't talk about it, but I saw that until the end, and I thought it made me even curious as to what's going to happen in Batman 2, which prior to watching this show, I cared a lot less about that, and now I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, yeah, kind of like where are they going to go with that? What more is going to happen with those characters? That's the sign of a well-told story of well-acted characters. I want to see what happens
Right.
next.
And it's one of the only times that they tried one of those streaming shows that's based on a cinema thing that I actually think that they did a good job. And really, you're saying, oh, what's going to happen in the next movie, which again, really unheard of. So,
Well, especially since I didn't actually like the
right.
Batman.
I told you that I had the mixed feelings about it, and I was kind of generous with it because of my state of mind while watching it. But yes, it had its issues as well. And but now I am curious to see what they do with the second one. They've really, have me invested in this character and in this situation, so it'll be nice to see. Before we go, I just want to go and say, give some shout outs to some people. And then I think it's getting late, and
Yeah.
so One Punch Man Tolkien fan, Ghost Fixter, sorry, Tripping Orc, Eraserhead, Mur Rockstra, Scribe Light, friend of the channel, Tripping Orc, Robin of Scoobla. Actually, all these are friend of the channel, to be honest. Tim Hayes, Tex Rogers, Jama Lama, Scribe Light, Stephen Mack, Kivo 1961. Thank you for the super chat. Eraserhead, Tim Hayes, Stephen Mack, Urkel, DeStefano, Tripping Orc, Tex Rogers, Kivo, Phantom Monk. Some of these I've said. This name always gets me, but I can't. What can I do? He left it to the chat. I have to mention it. I have no dick. Thank you for that wonderful name. Tex Rogers, Racerhead, Jama Lama, Dude Bro Seth. How's it going, man? Common People.
I saw the Dad Abides in there.
The Dad Abides. The Dead Man, thank you for the super chats, as well as Kivo. Thank you for the Rumble rants. Kivo 1961. Ramna Skula, I said. Phantom Monk, I don't know if I said. Stephen Mack, I thought I said. Empress and M, how's it going? Let's see. Hope I didn't. If I forget somebody, obviously I don't do it on purpose. SWD40. It's nice to see people having conversations here.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Hayes, I think I said it, but Tim Hayes, Tex Rogers. Really trying. Whalem03, Joshua Calkins, Ron Donafero. Hope I didn't miss anybody. Yeah, I think I went over everybody. If I forgot somebody, I apologize.
Yeah.
But
And I'll give a special shout out to Smilex, who I didn't see in the audience tonight, but he says he listens to every episode, and he said we forgot to say his name the other day. So yeah, even though you're not here, Smilex, I'm giving you your shout out. There you go, buddy.
Well, I apologize for that, Smilex. Didn't realize.
Oh, he was just giving me a hard time.
Oh, okay. I didn't know, but let me just make sure. We went over the super chats, right? And the Rumble
yeah, I think we covered all of the super chats. We just had the one from Common People. And
if we ever forget anybody, just let us know.
Thank you again for those.
Yeah, if we ever forget anybody, just let us know. We try our best, but so great to be able to hang out. Professor, do you want to plug anything before we go?
No, not really. Just glad to see everybody here. Make sure, whether on Rumble or YouTube, make sure you give us a like. If you are not already subscribed to the channel, please do that, and to get notifications when we're going to be going live. And we'll be back on Thursday at the usual time.
Oh, Jonathan Conroy says, good show, inverse opinion. Good night, all. Thanks, guys. I guess then, we can wish everybody a good night, I guess.
Yep. Good night, everybody.
Good night.